to bring in Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat of Delaware, to talk more about that. Senator, thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate it. I know that there has been a lot of outrage from your colleagues over the lack of communication and consent, no consent really from Congress prior to this operation. What do you think about that?
Well, thanks for a chance to be on, Jessica. It's been a remarkable period here. First, I'll just express gratitude that no Americans were killed, that our military carried out this operation flawlessly. And I recognize that there's many Venezuelans celebrating the removal of Maduro, a truly brutal authoritarian who misused the resources and harmed the people of Venezuela. But what is alarming to me, what has angered me and many others of my colleagues, is that President Trump and his senior national security team wasn't open and honest with us about their plans. For months, they said that the strikes against boats in the Southern Caribbean were all about drug trafficking and drug interdiction, and they had no plan for overthrowing Maduro or for sending the U.S. military into Venezuela. Now that they have done so, sent the military in, captured Maduro, returned him to the United States, it seems today they're just making this up as they go along. President Trump has no more well-developed plan for how to lead or govern or manage Venezuela than he does how to deliver health care for the American people or how to move forward in resolving the war in Ukraine or the suffering of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. There are too many circumstances where they're making it up as they go along. And we will have a vote, Jessica, in the Senate this week to require congressional consent for any ongoing larger-scale military action, because in recent times when we've overthrown dictators, whether in Libya or in Iraq, with no clear plan for what would happen afterwards, the consequences were terrible for the people of the country and costly for the American service members who we ended up asking to go in and fix it once we'd broken it.
So this vote you're saying is coming up this week. I'm curious what you've heard from your Republican colleagues. Obviously, you all are in the minority in both the House and the Senate. Do you believe that you'll get support on this from your Republican colleagues?
Senator Paul is a co-sponsor of the resolution. I don't know if there will be other Republicans who will vote for it. I think likely not. Look, most Americans view this through the lens that President Trump has been offering. This is about drug interdiction. Even though just a few weeks ago, he pardoned the former president of Honduras who trafficked hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States. And President Trump, in his press conference, basically said this was about getting access to Venezuela's oil and has threatened, in a tone that frankly sounds more like a mob boss than it does like the president of a democracy, Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, that if she doesn't go along with what we want, there's going to be terrible consequences for her. What I didn't hear from President Trump or frankly Secretary Hegseth or Secretary Rubio was a press for political prisoners to be released, for there to be recognition of the opposition leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize, for there to be free and fair elections, or a peaceful transition. Most of what President Trump has focused on is access to their oil and threatening the current leadership with further military action. That's what's opening the door to a very risky next chapter with no clear plan from this administration.
And so if you have this vote and this measure does not pass and you don't get additional powers when it comes to consent, and the president still saying that the U.S. is now running Venezuela, laying out what you just said there, that could potentially involve, what can Congress do about it? What role will you have?
Well, first, it's laughable to think that we could actually run Venezuela. It is a country twice the size of California with 25 million people, active domestic armed guerrilla groups, complex gangs and narco trafficking. So the idea that we could run Venezuela any more than we could run Iraq at the cost of sending 100,000 troops there, frankly, defies credibility. But second, if Republicans step up and do their job as the Article 1 power and say that there shouldn't be further military action without our consent, there's a lot we can do. If Republicans fold their arms and say, nope, We're willing to let President Trump do whatever he wants with our military overseas with no clear evidence of an imminent threat, then I think folks around the world will be even more anxious. Our trusted ally, Denmark, will wonder what it means when Trump continues to make threats against Greenland. Our ally, Panama, will wonder what it means when he threatens Panama. Heck, even Canada has reason to worry if there's no checks or balances provided by the Republicans in the Senate.
I want to focus lastly, come back to just Venezuela right now, because in January of 2025, the Biden administration raised the bounty on Maduro to $25 million, to which the Trump administration then raised it to $50 million. Clearly, both administrations wanted him captured. They wanted him arrested. Republicans have argued Trump just went ahead and did it, that he took action. What do you say to that thinking?
So look, there is precedent for our capturing a dictator of a foreign country and returning him to the United States to stand trial. This was the case of Manuel Noriega. Immediately following that, the duly elected president was sworn in because Noriega was using military force to maintain control of Panama. It was a brief, concise military action. One could argue it also needed congressional approval. But I think what is most alarming about this moment is that shambolic press conference by President Trump yesterday, where he said these guys, and points to Hegseth and Rubio, are going to be running Venezuela, which clearly was news to them. And he said, we have no hesitation putting more boots on the ground. And today he threatened further military action against the Venezuelan people through their vice president. I'm concerned about the lack of a plan for how to move forward without threatening violence or occupying Venezuela. I'll remind you, we have a huge armada of U.S. naval vessels, and it took 150 American aviators and planes to carry out this mission. This is an expensive and complex military operation, and it will not produce significant benefits to the United States or American oil companies for years to come. So frankly, the bottom line here is, President Trump, what's your goal? Are you trying to restore democracy? Are you trying to interdict drugs? Are you trying to access oil? And how much of a price are you asking American service members, our men and women who serve us around the world to keep us safe, to make in order to achieve whatever your actual goal is? We deserve an answer, and so do the American people and the men and women of our armed forces.
Yeah, back in December, after that briefing by Hegseth and Rubio, I know you told the press you didn't have any clarity on what they were doing, and it sounds like you were still seeking that clarity, and you still don't have the clarity that you want. Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jessica.